A sleepy little town with a history dark and strange. An unfortunate soul at the crossroads of sanity and madness. A long journey into a fog-bound nightmare. Silent Hill F, the latest in the long-running series, posits that it's these elements that ultimately make a Silent Hill game. Where previous attempts at continuing the work of the original Team Silent often settled for regurgitating the memorable and iconic elements of the 4 original games, rehashing themes or using characters, F boldly strips away even the temptation of returning to prior storylines or once more propping up Pyramid Head for some weird fan service cameo by stepping away from the town of Silent Hill entirely. Instead, F is set in the rural Japanese town of Ibisugaoka, sometime in the 1960s. Our heroine is Shimizu Hinako, a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, grappling with the end of adolescence and the growing societal expectations placed on women in this time and in this place. Something of a tomboy, Hinako displays an awareness, frustration, and a sense of disgust with the patriarchal norms of her time, and the story itself more or less follows the fracturing of her mind as she is coerced into the mindset of subservience and submission, at the same time tempted by the power to be found in someone else's control. To put it simply, this is a game about how much it sucks to be a teenage girl, and especially in such a conservative environment. The story is deeply feminist, following the traditions of Silent Hill as a series, and requires multiple playthroughs to acquire multiple endings, each of which leave Hinako alternatively in a state of distress, self-destruction, faux liberation, and, ultimately, reconciliation. The full story, requiring multiple playthroughs, each with their own additions and changes, is an interesting choice. It's a favorite trick of the writer Ryukishi 7, best known for the Higurashi series, but it's one that I found personally fulfilling, our understanding of the full situation growing and changing with each Sisyphean loop, as Hinako's own understanding similarly spirals and grows. While as thematically deep and complex as series highs like Silent Hill 2 and 3, my one criticism of the story is the presentation of Hinako's thoughts and observations in her in-game journal. Hinako's comments on certain monsters and characters are so on the nose as to their thematic purpose that I honestly recommend not looking at the entries until your second playthrough, just to maintain some mystery. This is a criticism I have about a lot of writing nowadays. For some reason, everybody's really terrified of subtext now, but a criticism it remains. Beyond that, the story is presented with incredible detail and care. Hinako's friends and family are rendered with just as much nuance as she is, and the town of Ibisugaoka is a character unto itself, a run-down mining town that time forgot, bursting with sorrowful, pathetic detail. The game is split between the town and an area known as the Dark Shrine, an otherworldly temple full of shadowy corridors and dim lights that shroud strange monsters and even stranger rituals. While some may find the aesthetic disappointing in comparison to the traditional rust and rebar of Silent Hill's otherworld, it serves a thematic purpose as a hall of tradition and godly power, the narrow halls and sliding doors forcing players to consider their movements and choices as they navigate the area and fight monsters. Which brings us to the combat, which seems to be the most controversial element of the game. Silent Hill games aren't typically known for robust and engaging combat, quite the opposite, in fact, but the systems here are very fleshed out in comparison to other games in the series. Hinako can use light and heavy attacks, a perfect dodge, a counter, and focused charge attacks. Weapons come in light, medium, and heavy varieties and contain their own distinct attributes within their class, affecting speed, stun, and damage. There are additional weapons that I won't spoil, and most all weapons degrade as you use them, making each swing a potential mistake. Enemies are themselves diverse, each requiring different tactics to deal with effectively, and the often claustrophobic environments require you to consider your spacing and timing. And, of course, if all of this fails, you can always run away. Hinako has 3 gauges, health, stamina, and sanity, the last of which affects her ability to focus, and all of which can be restored by either typical healing items or various snacks and candies that you can find lying around. These gauges can be increased by offering these same snacks and candies, along with designated items only meant to be offered, at the Hokora Shrine save points and using the resulting faith points to purchase upgrades. Hinako can also equip charms called Omamori, the effects of which can be as simple as increasing stamina or health, or so complex as to completely alter your playstyle, making Hinako automatically counterattack, letting her counter after a perfect dodge, or making it easier to escape enemies' lines of sight. All this to say, there's a lot going on here. Silent Hill F has a combat system that would give some full-blown action games a run for their money, and some later encounters ensure the game will not beat the Souls-like allegations. Previous games in the series treated combat more like an afterthought, something you can do in a sticky situation and occasionally have to utilize, but it very much took a backseat to the moody, atmospheric exploration and puzzle solving that many would argue are the gameplay pillars of the series. Ultimately, I think it's a fantastic system. It turns every encounter into its own intense puzzle with open-ended solutions. It requires you to measure all your options and commit to your choices, resulting in a smart, tense game that asks you to really engage with everything it presents. The only issue I can see is that the combat becomes a bit too prevalent towards the end. If F has a 60-40 combat puzzle split, future entries really should reverse that ratio. In my opinion, the question is not, is this a good system? But more, is this an appropriate system for a Silent Hill game, which reasonable people can reasonably disagree about? Personally, I'd like to see this system continued, revised, and fleshed out, as I think it forces players to make the hard choices that make the horror game genre such a fun one, and in this particular case reinforces our identification with Hinako and her struggle. But if you have an opinion that you're particularly loud about, feel free to share it in the comments. All that said, there is perhaps one glaring issue I have with the game, which is the frame rate. While the game is absolutely gorgeous to look at, thank you Unreal 5, it also has the frame rate consistency of old cottage cheese, thank you Unreal 5. While the sight of the town being overtaken by red pustules and slimy flowers is strangely beautiful to behold, it does put a lot of strain on the engine, and later segments in the town saw notable frame rate loss on a base PS5. Is it enough to ruin the experience? No, at least not for me. But damn if I wouldn't want a patch to resolve this. Technical issues aside, Silent Hill F is, in my estimation, one of the best games to come out this year. It's a tense, thoughtful nightmare, a horror game that asks you to find beauty in terror, and terror in beauty. It features a brilliant story rooted in a deeply human form of terror, one that asks the audience for their empathy as well as their outrage. It delivers that story with all necessary nuance and flair, with systems that, though a bit overbearing, ultimately work well and serve the greater whole. It is, in my opinion, not just one of the best horror games in recent memory, but one of the best games I've played in years. And it continues the Silent Hill series renaissance that began with last year's remake of Silent Hill 2. As far as I'm concerned, this is an easy 9 out of 10. Go get it, go play it. It's a head trip worth taking.